Hi there and welcome to another Ispmanager video. In this video, let's talk about users. We're going to create a user, and that is the user we'll use for creating our resources such as websites and so on. So if you go to the Ispmanager documentation and then come to user accounts, you can read more about users here on the documentation. So there are 3 user levels. I'm just going to click on that. We have the super user, the administrator, and the normal user. You can come here and see the differences, but the super user has rules over everything. The super user has control over everything, and then the administrator has admin roles for certain tasks on the panel, and then this is a normal user on your panel, and that's the one we're going to create because it doesn't have much privileges. If you come down here, you can see they can create and manage different resources for running a website and mail. So if you come here, let's click on users. And we want to create a normal user. If you want to create an admin user, you'll have to scroll down here to administration. You can create an administrator. You can also create a super administrator here. So if I was to create an admin, you see that I can give them super user privileges. So if you want to create a super user or an admin, you can do that here under administration. What we are interested in is just a normal user. So I'm going to create a new user. I've clicked on create, but I'm not going to create it yet. I just want to show you something here. You see all these things that we can give to this user. Instead, we can go and create a template instead of having to do this all the time. So let's go back into users. And if you come here under templates, you'll see that you can create a template. Right now, we don't have a template. A template is just like a grouping of user functionality. Maybe you want to give 3 websites, 3 mail, 3 email accounts, and so on. So you'll click there on add. Let's just call this basic user template. We can give them disk space. We'll just leave it as unlimited databases. Let's say 10 databases. Database users, you can also give them 10. FTP users, you can give them 10. If you're selling web hosting, this is something you'd need to do because users will have to be created based on the template that you provide. So websites, they can have maybe 10. Domain names, so this is DNS, they can have 10. Mail domains, they can have 10. Mailboxes, they can have 100. And then access. So pay attention here because this is important. Now SSL, of course, you want them to be able to create websites with SSL certificates. So of course I will give that. And then CGI, you can activate PHP CGI for this account. Yes. PHP as Apache module. Your server has both Apache and Nginx. You can enable this so that they have the choice of using PHP as Apache, or they can use PHP as CGI, or they can use PHP FPM with Nginx. And then for the PHP version, you can choose a default. So I've chosen PHP 8.1 as their default version. And then shell access. If you want them to be able to log in via SSH, you can give this access, but this is something you probably don't want to give your users. So you can just uncheck it, and if they request for it, you can enable it for them. In this case, I'm the only user here, so I can give myself access, but I'm not going to. Default values, domain encoding, I'll just leave that at none. It will go with the default. And then PHP mode, you can specify the PHP mode that they will use by default. They can use CGI. In my case, I'm just going to go with Nginx and PHP FPM. You can leave it unspecified and they will choose, and you can choose during the account creation process. And then the default PHP version. For this, let's go with PHP 8.1, PHP version for Apache module. This one as well, PHP 8.1. And then the index page, we leave that as default. I'm going to create this template. User templates. Let's go back. And now we can create a user. Remember, users, if you want to get to that, come here, select that. So I'm going to create a user. Let's just call this user Wahowa. And then the full name is not mandatory. I'm just going to leave it out. And then template, you can select a template here. You can create more templates. For me, I'm going to choose the one that I've created. And once I do that, it's going to automatically populate everything here. All these elements you see, you can change for the user. Which one is missing? So there's an item missing here. Generate a password. Once I enter the password, I'm going to click next. Second step, I can choose all these other options. Create selected objects automatically. Create selected objects automatically. I'm going to leave that checked. Add FTP user. You can add an FTP user. I don't use FTP, so I'm going to disable that. We can come in later and add an FTP user. Create a website. You can create a website right now. If you already have a domain or a subdomain that you want to use, you can create the website right away, but I'm not going to do that now. We're going to do that later. And then add a mail domain. You can add a mail domain. So I'm going to disable that as well for now. And then I'm going to go next. All these items that I'm skipping, we're going to create them at some point. The following objects will be created. Click finish to confirm the data. We're going to create this user. Finish. There we go. Now we have our new user. We can log in as this user. Since I'm the root user, I can actually log in as this user. If I just select on it, I can just log in as this user. If I click there to log in as this user, it's going to log me in as that user. And if I want to go back to my root super user account, I can click there to go back to root. So you see, with a normal user, you don't get a lot of functionality. So even if someone was to gain access to that account, they won't have all the other access to very sensitive functionalities such as web server settings and so on. So that's why it's advisable to use a normal user to create all your resources such as websites, mails, and so on. So if we go back to the root user, we can also log into the panel as that user. So if I was to take this, copy, open it in incognito, Control-Shift-N, enter. We are now logged in as the normal user. If you're giving this account to somebody else, they can do all these things. They can add a website, they can go to the file manager, they can do all these things. Let's do a recap. In this video, we've seen how we can create a user. We've said that the three types of Ispmanager users, the super user and the admin user, can be created under administration, administrators. The normal user can be created there. If you want to edit a user, go back to the user. Maybe somebody forgets their password. You want to reset the password for them. You can just come in here, click that, edit, and then you can change the password there. So that's it for that one.